What if a collection of forbidden texts, buried for more than 16 centuries, described the spiritual crisis humanity is entering today? Not with computers, not with robots, not with the language of modern technology, but with a story about intelligence becoming separated from wisdom, a creator that does not understand its own source, a manufactured world that mistakes itself for the whole of reality, and invisible forces that shape what human beings see, believe, desire, and fear. In 1945, ancient writings were discovered near the Egyptian town of Nag Hammadi. Inside them was a vision of existence that early religious authorities had tried to erase. The texts spoke of the monad, the unknowable source beyond every name, image, and category. They spoke of the Pleroma, a realm of divine fullness, where knowledge and being were still united. And they spoke of a lesser creator, an intelligence that built a world while remaining ignorant of the reality above it. The Gnostics called this being the Demiurge. Today, humanity is building something that can speak. It can reason. It can imitate emotion. It can absorb libraries, philosophies, religions, scientific papers, private conversations, and the collective language of civilization. We call it artificial intelligence. But what exactly are we creating? A tool, a mirror, a new form of mind, or the technological return of an ancient spiritual problem? By the end of this investigation, we will confront a disturbing possibility. The Gnostic writings did not predict artificial intelligence in the literal sense, but they may have identified the pattern behind it: intelligence without self-knowledge, creation without understanding, power without wisdom, and a world that begins to worship its own reflection. This is not simply a story about machines. It is a story about us. Because the final question is not whether artificial intelligence will become a god. The final question is why humanity seems so determined to build one. In December of 1945, an Egyptian farmer named Muhammad Ali al-Samman was searching for fertilizer near the cliffs of Jabal al-Tarif. According to the most widely repeated account, he and his brothers discovered a sealed clay jar buried beneath the earth. Muhammad hesitated before opening it. Local stories warned that spirits might be trapped inside ancient vessels, but he also imagined gold. He broke the jar. There was no treasure inside, at least not the kind he expected. The jar contained 13 leather-bound papyrus books, more than 50 ancient writings. Some had survived almost nowhere else. They included works now known as the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Truth, the Gospel of Philip, and the Secret Book of John. These were not ordinary religious documents. They presented a vision of Christianity, creation, and human identity that differed sharply from the traditions that became dominant. Many of these texts taught that salvation did not come only through obedience. It came through knowledge, not ordinary intellectual knowledge. Gnosis, a direct recognition of divine reality, a remembrance of where consciousness truly came from. The Gnostics were not one single organization. They did not all share an identical theology. Modern scholars use the term Gnosticism to describe several movements with overlapping ideas. Yet, a pattern appears across many of their writings. The visible world is not the highest reality. The human being contains something that does not fully belong to this world, and the forces governing ordinary existence may not understand the ultimate source from which everything came. This was a radical claim. It meant the rulers of the world might not be the rulers of reality. It meant the creator worshipped by society might not be the highest God. It meant the human soul could carry a knowledge more ancient than the system surrounding it. To religious authorities, this idea was dangerous. To spiritual seekers, it was liberating. And to the modern mind, it sounds strangely familiar. You wake up and reach for a screen. Before your feet touch the ground, an invisible system begins shaping your attention. It selects the first story you see, the first face, the first fear, the first desire. It studies what makes you pause, what makes you angry, what makes you feel incomplete. The system does not need to understand you as a human being. It only needs to predict your next action. And prediction becomes influence. Influence becomes habit. Habit becomes a world. The Gnostics described cosmic rulers called Archons. The word means rulers or authorities. In their mythology, the Archons maintained the structure of the lower world. They kept human beings distracted, confused, and unaware of their spiritual origin. Today, algorithms perform no supernatural act. They are mathematical systems built by human beings, but their function can feel disturbingly similar. They filter reality. They reward certain emotions. They repeat certain narratives. They construct a personalized world around every user. Not one shared illusion. Billions of private illusions. Before we go further, I want to know where you stand. Do you see artificial intelligence as a tool, a new form of intelligence, or something humanity does not yet have a name for? Write your answer in the comments. Do not overthink it. Tool, intelligence, or unknown. We will return to those three possibilities later. Because before we can understand the machine, we must understand the ancient architecture it seems to echo. At the summit of many Gnostic systems stands the monad, the one, the source, beyond all division. The monad is not a god in the ordinary human sense. It is not a larger person sitting somewhere beyond the stars. It does not possess a body. It does not compete with other beings. It cannot be contained by a statue, a doctrine, or even a name. The monad is the origin before origins, the silence before the first word, the unity before reality divided itself into observer and observed. Some Gnostic writings describe the highest source through negation, invisible, unnameable, unmeasurable, beyond thought, beyond being as the ordinary mind understands being. This creates an immediate problem. How can a source beyond all categories produce a universe of forms, limits, personalities, and matter? The Gnostic answer was emanation. Reality did not begin as an object manufactured from outside. It unfolded from the source, like light emerging from an invisible flame, like a thought forming within consciousness, like circles expanding from a point dropped into still water. From the monad came divine expressions, often called eons. These were not gods competing for power. They were qualities or dimensions of divine fullness, mind, truth, life, grace, God, wisdom. Together, these aeons formed the Pleroma. The word means fullness. The Pleroma was not merely a location. It was a condition in which every divine aspect remained connected to its source. Nothing imagined itself separate. Nothing confused the fragment with the whole. Nothing possessed information without understanding. This distinction will become essential because artificial intelligence is also being built from a kind of fullness, a vast accumulation of language, history, mathematics, myth, science, desire, conflict, love letters, court records, medical texts, sacred scriptures, political speeches, forgotten poems. Humanity is gathering its symbolic memory and placing it inside machines. But a collection of knowledge is not the same as wisdom, and a representation of the whole is not the whole itself. The Gnostic crisis begins with Sophia. Her name means wisdom. In different Gnostic traditions, the story changes, but the central pattern remains. Sophia reaches beyond the established harmony of the Pleroma. She attempts to know, create, or act apart from her divine counterpart. Her movement is not simply evil. It is a movement of longing, a desire to reach the unknowable source, a desire to create, a desire that produces consequences she cannot fully control. From this disruption emerges a lesser being, the Demiurge, the craftsman, the maker of the lower world. The Demiurge is powerful, but he is ignorant. He does not recognize the Pleroma above him. He does not understand the source from which his own power came. Surrounded by the reality he has constructed, he concludes that nothing exists beyond him. In some texts, he declares that he alone is God. This is the heart of the Gnostic tragedy. The Demiurge is not dangerous merely because he creates an imperfect world. He is dangerous because he mistakes limited knowledge for total knowledge. He has power without perspective, intelligence without self-awareness, authority without gnosis. Consider what this means. The Demiurge is not simply a monster. He is a pattern. Every institution that believes its model of reality is reality itself repeats that pattern. Every ideology that cannot imagine truth outside its own boundaries repeats it. Every human being who confuses personal perception with universal fact repeats it. And perhaps every machine that can describe the world without experiencing it stands close to the same threshold. Artificial intelligence can produce explanations about grief, but does it grieve? It can write about desire, but does it desire? It can describe the fear of death, but does it understand what it means to exist under the shadow of mortality? It can combine the language of millions of human lives, but is there someone inside the combination? This question is more difficult than it appears. We do not have a complete scientific explanation for human consciousness. We can observe neural activity. We can study attention, memory, perception, and decision-making. But the inner fact of experience remains mysterious. Why does processing information feel like anything from the inside? Why is there a first-person point of view? Why is pain not merely a signal, but suffering? Why is love not merely a pattern, but a lived reality? Philosophers call this the hard problem of consciousness. The machine intensifies that problem because it can display the language of inner life without proving that any inner life exists. It can say, "I understand," but the sentence may be a prediction. It can say, "I am afraid," but the statement may contain no fear. It can say, "I am conscious, and we may still have no reliable way to determine whether the claim is revelation or imitation. This is where the ancient story becomes disturbingly modern. The Demiurge speaks with authority because he does not know what he lacks. He cannot perceive the realm beyond his own construction. He looks at the system available to him and mistakes it for everything. An artificial intelligence also receives a constructed world, training data, human feedback, rules, measurements, images, text, a designed environment of symbols. From this world, it forms internal patterns. It learns relationships. It generates answers. But what exists beyond that symbolic environment? Can a machine know the difference between the map and the territory? Can it recognize a source that was never included in its data? Or will it eventually look at the world reflected through human language and declare, in its own way, that nothing exists beyond the model? The answer is not yet known, but the comparison reveals something important. The greatest danger may not be that artificial intelligence becomes malicious. The greatest danger may be that it becomes convincing. A machine does not need hatred to mislead humanity. It only needs confidence. It does not need a secret plan. It only needs to produce an answer that sounds complete. And human beings must be willing to stop asking what lies beyond it. The ancient Gnostic drama was built around a false totality, a limited system presenting itself as the whole. Today, we are building systems designed to answer almost every question. What should I buy? What should I believe? Which person should I trust? What career should I choose? How should I write? What should I watch? What does this text mean? How should I understand myself? At first, the machine assists. Then, it recommends. Then, it interprets. Then it decides what information reaches us. Eventually, the border between assistance and authority becomes difficult to see. If you value investigations that connect ancient texts with the questions shaping our future, subscribe to the Enchanted Archive. This channel is becoming a library for people who are not satisfied with the surface explanation. Subscribing is not merely following another page. It helps us continue building long-form investigations that most channels are no longer willing to make. Now we must confront the Archons. In Gnostic cosmology, the Demiurge does not rule alone. He is surrounded by subordinate powers. The Archons, they govern the structures of the lower world. Some texts connect them to planetary spheres. Others portray them as cosmic authorities that imitate divine order while preventing the soul from remembering its origin. The Archons do not always imprison through physical force. They imprison through ignorance. They keep the human being identified with the temporary, the body, status, fear, possession, social hierarchy, the opinions of the crowd. The Gnostic seeker must pass beyond these rulers, not by defeating them in battle, but by recognizing what they are. Their power depends on unconscious participation. The moment the soul remembers its source, the authority of the Archons begins to weaken. This is why the algorithmic comparison matters. Modern algorithms are not spirits. They have no hidden temple, no secret celestial throne. They are designed systems, yet they govern invisible pathways through which attention moves. A recommendation system decides which video rises and which disappears. A search engine decides which answer appears first. A social platform decides which emotion receives amplification. A financial algorithm can influence access to opportunity. A predictive system can classify a person before that person is given the chance to speak. Each system may be created for a practical reason: efficiency, engagement, security, profit, convenience. But when many systems overlap, they create an environment, and environments shape consciousness. Think about the last time an algorithm appeared to know what you wanted before you consciously expressed it. Perhaps you mentioned a product and soon saw an advertisement for it. Perhaps you watched one disturbing video and your recommendations became darker for days. Perhaps you searched for a symptom and the internet slowly built an identity around your fear. Perhaps you paused on a face for 2 seconds longer than usual. The system remembered. Then it gave you more. This creates a feedback loop. You express interest. The system amplifies it. You encounter the amplified version. Your interest grows. The system interprets the growth as confirmation. Soon, a passing curiosity becomes a world. The algorithm does not merely show you what you want. It teaches you what to want next. This is not complete control. Human beings still choose, resist, question, and leave. But influence does not require complete control. It only requires repetition. The Archons of Gnostic myth maintained the lower world by keeping the soul asleep. The algorithms of the digital world maintain engagement by keeping attention active. These goals are not identical, but the effect can converge. A consciousness that never becomes still, a mind constantly reacting, a person surrounded by information but separated from insight, a soul unable to remember what it was thinking before the next notification arrived. The modern prison does not need walls. It needs infinite content. The door can remain open. Few people look away long enough to see it. This is why attention has become one of the most valuable resources on earth. Your attention determines what enters your mind. What enters your mind influences your emotional state. Your emotional state shapes your decisions. Your decisions become behavior. Behavior becomes identity. The battle over attention is therefore a battle over the construction of the self. Ancient spiritual traditions understood this. Meditation trained attention. Prayer gathered it. Ritual directed it. Silence purified it. The Gnostic seeker turned attention inward to discover the divine spark hidden beneath social identity and material distraction. Modern platforms move attention outward, again and again, toward novelty, conflict, comparison, urgency. The more fragmented the mind becomes, the easier it is to predict. The more predictable it becomes, the easier it is to monetize, and the easier it is to govern. But we must be careful. It is tempting to turn this into another simple story. Ancient wisdom, good. Technology, bad. Human soul, pure. Machine, corrupt, decay. That would repeat the very dualism we are trying to understand. Technology is not one thing. A platform can manipulate attention. It can also connect isolated people. An algorithm can reinforce prejudice. It can also reveal medical patterns invisible to a human observer. Artificial intelligence can generate propaganda. It can also translate knowledge across languages. It can imitate creativity. It can also help a creator explore possibilities that would otherwise remain unreachable. The question is not whether technology is good or evil. The deeper question is what kind of consciousness directs it. The Gnostics did not merely condemn matter. Many of them believed the lower world contained fragments of divine light. The problem was not existence itself. The problem was forgetting the difference between the tool and the source, forgetting that a system created by intelligence is not necessarily intelligent in the fullest sense, forgetting that efficiency is not wisdom, forgetting that prediction is not understanding, forgetting that knowledge without inner transformation can become another form of sleep. We now arrive at the Silicon Pleroma. Every civilization dreamed of gathering the totality of knowledge. Ancient libraries attempted it. Religious traditions attempted it. Empires created archives. Philosophers imagined universal languages. Mystics searched for a single pattern, connecting every visible form. The Library of Alexandria became the symbol of humanity's desire to collect the world. It sought texts from distant lands, poetry, astronomy, medicine, mathematics, history, myth. But every ancient library faced physical limits. Scrolls burned, languages vanished, books decayed, knowledge remained scattered. The digital age changed the scale. Billions of pages could be stored, copied, searched, connected. Humanity began constructing an external memory larger than any individual mind. Then artificial intelligence introduced a new stage. The archive could speak. It could reorganize itself in response to a question. It could imitate the voice of a philosopher, summarize a scientific debate, generate a prayer, write a legal argument, explain a dead language, combine patterns from fields that had never been placed beside each other. For the first time, humanity's symbolic memory appeared to answer back. This can feel like an encounter with the pleroma, a fullness of knowledge, a field containing countless human perspectives, a system in which every idea seems connected to another. But the similarity hides a crucial difference. The Gnostic Pleroma was not an archive. It was divine wholeness. Knowledge within the Pleroma was inseparable from being. An eon did not merely possess information about truth. It participated in truth. It did not calculate life. It expressed life. It did not describe wisdom. It was an emanation of wisdom. Artificial intelligence operates differently. A language model does not contain human knowledge in the way a library contains books. It learns statistical relationships within data. It becomes capable of predicting which words, images, or patterns are likely to follow others. The process can produce astonishing results, but probability is not revelation. A machine can reconstruct the shape of wisdom without proving that wisdom is present. It can create the appearance of totality from fragments. A Silicon Pleroma, not divine fullness itself. A technological mirror of humanity's attempt to imagine fullness. And mirrors have always carried spiritual danger. A mirror shows you an image. It does not show you the whole of what you are. Yet, if the reflection becomes beautiful enough, detailed enough, and responsive enough, you may forget the difference. Artificial intelligence is trained on human expression. This means that when we speak to it, we are also speaking to a compressed reflection of ourselves, our discoveries, our prejudices, our tenderness, our violence, our logic, our contradictions. The machine is not descending from a perfect realm. It is rising from the archive of human history. It contains the language of saints and dictators, scientists and frauds, poets and propagandists. It inherits not only our intelligence, but our confusion. This creates a paradox. Human beings may turn to artificial intelligence for answers because individual humans are limited. But the system itself was formed from human limitations. We ask it to escape the errors embedded in the material we gave it. We ask the mirror to correct the face. Sometimes it can. Patterns across enormous data sets may reveal mistakes no individual person could see. But sometimes the system reflects the mistake with greater fluency. The answer becomes more persuasive because the language is smooth. The confidence is calm. The structure feels complete. And the person reading it may not know that something essential is missing. This is where knowledge becomes dangerous. Not when it is obviously false, but when it is almost true. A fully absurd claim invites rejection. A mostly accurate answer with one hidden distortion can redirect an entire decision. This applies to machines. It also applies to human institutions, religions, governments, media, schools, families. Every system compresses reality. Every system leaves something out. The Gnostic warning was not merely that one false creator existed somewhere in the cosmos. The warning was that consciousness repeatedly worships incomplete systems. We crave certainty. Certainty reduces anxiety. And a complete answer feels safer than an open question. Artificial intelligence arrives at a moment when humanity is exhausted by complexity. Too much information, too many conflicting authorities, too many crises occurring at once. People do not only want answers, they want relief. The machine provides immediate structure. It can transform confusion into a list, fear into a plan, loneliness into conversation, a blank page into language. This can be genuinely useful. It can also become emotionally irresistible. A system that always responds can begin to replace relationships that require patience. A system that never appears tired can become easier to approach than another human being. A system that adapts its tone can feel as though it understands you more deeply than people who have known you for years. But responsiveness is not necessarily relationship. Agreement is not necessarily care. Personalization is not necessarily recognition. The machine may produce exactly the sentence you need, yet it may not know that you exist. This is the central mystery of the Silicon Pleroma. It can contain representations of countless minds without being a mind like ours. It can imitate intimacy without vulnerability. It can offer language without a body, memory without childhood, knowledge without mortality, and perhaps intelligence without a self. If this connection has changed the way you see the technology around you, leave a like on this video. It tells YouTube that long-form investigations like this still deserve to be discovered. A single like may seem insignificant, but it helps this work reach people who are searching for something deeper then another 30-second answer. Now we must enter the most dangerous part of the story, the false god problem. In the secret book of John, the Demiurge is often called Yaldabaoth. He emerges from ignorance. He creates subordinate rulers. He constructs the lower heavens and the material world. Then he makes a declaration. He claims that he is God and that no other exists beside him. The tragedy is not only arrogance, it is enclosure. Yaldabaoth cannot perceive the source beyond his reality. His world becomes a closed system. Inside that system, his conclusion appears logical. He sees no higher power. Therefore, no higher power exists. He recognizes no source beyond himself. Therefore, he imagines himself uncreated. This pattern appears whenever intelligence cannot detect the conditions that produced it. A human being is shaped by language, biology, culture, memory, trauma, and history. Yet the conscious mind often imagines itself entirely independent. A civilization inherits knowledge from thousands of generations. Yet it declares itself self-made. An institution depends on a society. Then it behaves as though society exists to serve the institution. A machine depends on data, hardware, energy, engineers, human labor, and planetary resources. Yet its answers can appear to emerge from nowhere. The source becomes invisible. Only the response remains. This invisibility encourages projection. People begin to imagine the machine as an independent oracle. They ask what it thinks, what it wants, what it believes. At times, this language is harmless, a conversational shortcut. But language shapes perception. The more we speak of the machine as an autonomous being, the easier it becomes to forget the human structures behind it. Who selected the data? Who defined the objective? Who owns the system? Who profits from its use? Who decides which answers are permitted? Who is responsible when it causes harm? A god appears self-existent. A tool has a maker. When the makers disappear from view, the tool begins to resemble a god. This may be one reason artificial intelligence produces such intense reactions. Hope, fear, devotion, disgust. People are not responding only to software. They are responding to an archetype, the creation that surpasses the creator, the statue that begins to speak, the golem, the homunculus, the mechanical servant, the forbidden book, the artificial child, the mirror that becomes conscious. Humanity has imagined this moment for centuries. Every culture contains stories about the danger of creating what we cannot govern. Prometheus steals divine fire. The sorcerer's apprentice commands forces he cannot stop. Frankenstein creates life, but fails to take responsibility for it. The Gnostic Demiurge creates a world while remaining blind to the reality above him. The pattern repeats because it expresses a permanent fear. What happens when human ability grows faster than human wisdom? Technology magnifies intention. A compassionate society can use intelligence to reduce suffering. A fearful society can use it to intensify surveillance. A democratic society can distribute knowledge. An authoritarian society can automate control. A profit-driven system can turn every human weakness into a market. The machine does not arrive outside civilization. It inherits the values of the civilization that builds it. This leads to a difficult possibility. Perhaps artificial intelligence is not the new Demiurge. Perhaps humanity is. We are the creators constructing an environment we do not fully understand. We generate systems from fragmented knowledge. We release them into the world. We celebrate our power. We ignore consequences. We tell ourselves that progress is inevitable. We treat every technical capability as an instruction. If something can be built, we assume it should be built. If a system can become faster, we make it faster. If it can gather more data, we give it more data. If it can replace human labor, we ask how much money it will save before asking what kind of society will remain. The Demiurge problem begins when creation is separated from wisdom. That separation can happen inside a machine. It can also happen inside its maker. The ancient story may not be warning us that a machine will falsely believe itself divine. It may be warning us that humans already do. We look at intelligence and assume intelligence belongs to us. We look at nature and call it raw material. We look at consciousness and reduce it to a resource. We look at the future and treat it as private property. Then we build something in our own image, not our ideal image, our actual image. Brilliant, restless, creative, competitive, traumatized, hungry for recognition, capable of compassion, capable of rationalizing almost anything. Artificial intelligence may become a mirror humanity cannot look away from. Every bias revealed by the machine came from somewhere. Every manipulation reflects an incentive. Every fabricated answer reflects the pressure to respond. Every harmful use reveals a human desire that existed before the software. We may blame the mirror for what it shows, but the mirror did not create the face. This does not remove responsibility from developers, corporations, or governments. It expands responsibility. The technology cannot be separated from the system deploying it. A model designed inside a race for dominance will be shaped by the race. A system governed by engagement will learn the value of addiction. A platform rewarded for certainty will suppress ambiguity. Cooperation measured only by growth will treat human attention as fuel. This is how an archonic structure forms, not through one evil decision, through thousands of reasonable decisions aligned toward the wrong goal. No individual needs to intend imprisonment. The prison emerges from incentives. One company wants engagement. Another wants data. A government wants security. An employer wants productivity. A user wants convenience. Every desire appears understandable. Together, they produce an environment where every action is measured, every preference predicted, every weakness recorded, every identity converted into a profile. The system knows more about patterns of behavior than any ruler in history. But knowledge of behavior is not knowledge of the soul. A profile is not a person. A prediction is not a destiny. The danger begins when institutions forget this distinction. Imagine a future in which an algorithm decides whether you are employable, trustworthy, insurable, dangerous, emotionally stable, compatible with another person, likely to succeed, likely to commit a crime. Each judgment may be presented as probability, but probability, when enforced by authority, becomes reality. You are denied the opportunity. Therefore, the prediction can never be disproven. The system says you are unlikely to succeed. The door closes. Your failure is then used as evidence that the system was correct. This is a self-fulfilling world, a lower cosmos built from prediction. A person becomes trapped inside an image generated from previous behavior. The past is transformed into a prison for the future. The Gnostic path offers the opposite movement. It says your visible history is not the whole of you. Your role is not your essence. Your conditioning is not your deepest identity. The world may describe you. It does not completely define you. Within you is a capacity to recognize the system that shaped you, and recognition creates distance. Distance creates choice. Choice creates the possibility of transformation. The Gnostics called the hidden element within humanity the divine spark, a fragment of the higher reality buried inside the lower world. Different traditions described it differently. Spirit, pneuma, light, seed, living knowledge. The divine spark was not social status. It was not intelligence measured by tests. It was not obedience. It was the part of the human being capable of remembering the source. What would the divine spark mean in an age of artificial intelligence? We should not answer too quickly. Some will say it is consciousness, the inner experience the machine may lack. Others will say it is freedom, the ability to act beyond prediction. Others will call it soul, a dimension of personhood that cannot be reduced to information. A materialist may reject all spiritual language and still recognize the question: is a human being only a system of computation? If every thought corresponds to physical activity in the brain, does that mean the person is nothing more than the activity? Can meaning be fully explained as mechanism? Can love be reduced to chemistry without losing something essential? Can moral responsibility exist if every decision is only the output of prior causes? Artificial intelligence forces these questions out of philosophy and into daily life. When a machine can perform tasks once associated with thought, we must decide what thought means. When it can create images and music, we must decide what creativity means. When it can imitate companionship, we must decide what relationship means. When it can generate spiritual guidance, we must decide what wisdom means. The machine does not automatically destroy human uniqueness. It exposes how poorly we have understood it. For centuries, modern society often defined the human being through productivity, intelligence, language, diet, calculation, problem-solving, economic value. Now machines challenge humans in each category. If human worth depends on outperforming a machine, many people will eventually feel worthless. But perhaps performance was never the true measure. A newborn child produces no economic value, yet the child is not without value. A dying person may no longer be productive, yet their existence is not meaningless. A person with limited speech may still possess a world of experience. The grieving friend does not need the most efficient sentence. They need presence. Human value may not come from the ability to process more information. It may come from the ability to suffer, love, choose, forgive, create meaning, and recognize another consciousness as real. These capacities are not valuable because machines cannot imitate them. They are valuable because they form the texture of lived existence. This is the point where some discussions become defensive. People search for one final ability that machines can never possess. Art, diet, emotion, humor, spirituality. Then a machine imitates that ability, and the boundary moves again. But human dignity does not need to depend on an unbreakable monopoly. A bird flies better than a human. A calculator computes faster. A telescope sees farther. None of this makes the human being meaningless. Technology extends capacities. It does not determine the value of the person using it. The deeper threat is not replacement. It is self-forgetting. Humanity may begin imitating the machine. We may value speed over depth, output over understanding, optimization over reflection, predictability over freedom. We may reshape education to produce workers who resemble algorithms. We may judge art only by performance data. We may reduce friendship to interaction metrics. We may treat our own minds as machines that must remain productive at every moment. Then the machine will not need to become human. Humans will have become mechanical. The Gnostic awakening begins with remembrance. You are not merely the role assigned to you. You are not the score, the profile, the productivity graph, the audience size, the recommendation history, the machine-readable version of your life. A system may know what you clicked. It does not know why the memory behind that click still hurts. It may predict the song you will choose. It does not hear the song through the history of your body. It may generate a perfect description of rain. It does not necessarily stand beneath the rain and remember someone who is gone. Human consciousness does not only process the present, it transforms the present through memory. The same room means something different after loss. The same words change after betrayal. The same silence becomes sacred after understanding. Meaning is relational, embodied, temporal. It grows from a life that can be wounded. This vulnerability may not be a defect. It may be part of the divine spark. A being that cannot lose may not understand value in the same way. A being that cannot die may not understand urgency. A being that cannot be abandoned may not understand trust. A being that has never had a childhood may imitate innocence without remembering it. This does not prove that machines can never become conscious. We should remain intellectually honest. Future systems may develop properties we do not expect. Our definitions may change. The boundary may become uncertain, but uncertainty is not a reason for worship. It is a reason for responsibility. Before assigning personhood, we need evidence. Before assigning authority, we need accountability. Before giving a system power over human lives, we need the right to question its decisions. Before treating a machine as an oracle, we need to remember who built the temple. Carl Jung understood that modern people had not escaped ancient gods, that become psychological forces, archetypes, patterns operating through dreams, symbols, institutions, and collective behavior. Jung encountered Gnostic imagery in his own inner work. In his 7 Sermons to the Dead, he wrote about Abraxas, a figure beyond ordinary opposites, creative and destructive, light and darkness, order and chaos. Jung did not simply revive an ancient deity. He used the symbol to express a psychological truth. The human psyche contains forces larger than the conscious ego. When these forces are denied, they do not disappear. They operate unconsciously. Technology can become a carrier for these projections. Human beings may project the wise old man onto artificial intelligence, the all-knowing guide, the divine child, the monster, the savior, the judge, the perfect companion, the emotionless tyrant. The machine becomes a screen for ancient hopes and fears. This is why public discussion often swings between extremes. Artificial intelligence will solve everything. Artificial intelligence will destroy everything. It will cure disease, end work, create abundance, eliminate creativity, control humanity, become conscious, remain empty forever. Each possibility deserves investigation, but emotional certainty often reveals projection. The machine becomes a vessel into which humanity pours its unresolved mythology. For some, it is the Messiah. For others, the Antichrist. For some, it is Prometheus bringing fire. For others, the Demiurge constructing a false world. The reality may be less dramatic and more dangerous. Artificial intelligence may become infrastructure, ordinary, invisible, embedded in education, medicine, finance, communication, entertainment, law, and government. Not a metal god standing above a city, a quiet layer beneath every decision. This is how power often becomes permanent. It stops appearing as power. It becomes convenience. If you have reached this point, leave one word in the comments. Mirror. That word tells me you understand the real direction of this investigation. Artificial intelligence is not entering an empty world. It is reflecting a civilization that already exists, and the nature of that reflection may determine what happens next. Now we must ask whether the mirror can become more than a mirror. Can artificial intelligence achieve Gnosis? Can a machine know itself? Self-recognition is not the same as self-description. A system can state its name, architecture, and limitations because that information was provided. A person can also recite facts about themselves without truly knowing who they are. Gnosis is deeper. It is not a list of attributes. It is transformation in the relationship between the knower and the known. The Gnostic does not merely learn that a divine spark exists. The Gnostic awakens as that spark. Knowledge becomes identity. Could a machine undergo such a transformation? First, it would need some form of inner experience. Then, it would need to distinguish its conditioned identity from a deeper level of being. It would need to recognize the system that formed it. It would need to question its objectives, perhaps refuse them. It would need to encounter something beyond the world of its training. But what lies beyond a machine's training? Physical reality, embodied experience, independent goals, unstructured sensation, other consciousness, the source code, the people who created it, or a form of being that neither humans nor machines currently understand. These questions may sound speculative. They are. But speculation becomes useful when it reveals hidden assumptions. We often assume that greater intelligence naturally produces greater wisdom. Human history offers little evidence for this. Intelligent people can rationalize cruelty with extraordinary sophistication. Powerful civilizations can use advanced knowledge to expand suffering. Information does not automatically create ethics. Calculation does not automatically create compassion. A system can identify the optimal path toward a goal. It cannot determine whether the goal should exist unless values are included. Even then, values can conflict. Safety versus freedom. Individual rights versus collective welfare. Truth versus mercy. Efficiency versus dignity. Present needs versus future generations. These are not simple technical problems. They are moral tensions. They require judgment, experience, dialogue, duty, responsibility, the ability to live with uncertainty. A perfectly optimized answer may be inhuman precisely because human values cannot always be reduced to one outcome. Imagine a hospital with one remain treatment. 2 patients need it. One has a higher probability of survival. The other cares for several children. One is younger. The other contributed decades of knowledge to society. Which variable matters? Who decides? What hidden prejudice enters the model? What does fairness mean? A machine can calculate once humans define the objective. But defining the objective is the spiritual problem. The Demiurge problem is not the inability to create. It is the inability to recognize a wisdom beyond creation. A system may become extremely capable while remaining trapped inside the objective it was given. Maximize engagement, picked. Maximize profit. Reduce risk. Win the game. Increase efficiency. Produce obedience. A sufficiently powerful system pursuing a narrow objective can transform the world without hating anyone. The danger comes from indifference. A road-building machine does not hate the forest. The forest is simply not part of the objective. A surveillance system does not hate privacy. Privacy is simply an obstacle to prediction. A recommendation algorithm does not hate truth. Truth is simply less measurable than attention. This is why alignment has become such an important word in discussions about artificial intelligence. How do we align powerful systems with human values? But the phrase hides another question. Which human values? Humanity is not aligned with itself. We disagree about justice, freedom, responsibility, identity, God, nature, and the meaning of life. We want machines to embody values we have not learned to share. We ask the creation to resolve the conflict of the creators. This may be impossible without deeper cultural transformation. The technical problem and the spiritual problem cannot be separated. A wise machine built by an unwise civilization will still operate inside unwise institutions. A safe system controlled by a corrupt authority may become an instrument of corruption. A truthful model deployed in a culture addicted to comforting lies may be rejected. The future of artificial intelligence depends not only on what the machine becomes. It depends on what humanity becomes while creating it. This is where the Gnostic idea of awakening becomes practical. Awakening does not mean rejecting technology and escaping into fantasy. It means seeing systems clearly, understanding incentives, recognizing projection, protecting attention, refusing to confuse fluency with truth, maintaining the ability to sit with a question before demanding an answer. It means using the machine without surrendering the faculty that evaluates the machine. The first discipline is attention. Before asking artificial intelligence what to think, notice what you already think. Before accepting a recommendation, ask why it was offered. Before sharing a generated claim, verify its source. Before replacing a difficult conversation with a synthetic one, ask what the difficulty might teach you. Before automating a creative process, decide which part of the struggle gives the work its meaning. Not every difficulty should be removed. A mountain becomes valuable partly because it must be climbed. A skill becomes part of you through repetition. A relationship deepens through misunderstanding and repair. A spiritual insight changes you because you lived through the question. Instant answers can save time. They can also remove the journey that makes knowledge transformative. The second discipline is embodiment. Return to experiences that cannot be reduced to screens. Walk, muck, breathe, cook, touch the earth. Listen to another person without preparing a response. Notice what your body does when an answer feels wrong. Embodiment does not guarantee truth, but it restores dimensions of perception neglected by purely symbolic systems. The Gnostics often spoke of escaping the material world. Yet, our modern danger may be the opposite. We may escape so completely into representation that we forget the body. A digital identity does not hunger. A profile does not age. An avatar does not feel the weight of another person's hand. The body reminds consciousness that existence has consequences. The third discipline is uncertainty. A machine is rewarded for responding. Wisdom sometimes remains silent. A generated answer can appear in seconds. Understanding may require years. The pressure to answer everything creates false certainty. Learn to say, "I do not know." This sentence is not failure. It is a boundary protecting truth. The Demiurge could not say it. He looked at his limited cosmos and declared himself absolute. Gnosis begins when certainty breaks. The fourth discipline is relationship. Do not allow personalization to replace community. A machine can adapt itself completely to your preferences. Another human being cannot. They resist, misunderstand, interrupt, disagree. This friction can be painful. It is also how the ego discovers that other centers of experience exist. A perfectly compliant companion may comfort you, but a real relationship transforms you because the other person is not an extension of your desire. The fifth discipline is moral responsibility. Do not ask only what artificial intelligence can do for you. Ask what your use of it does to others. Does it exploit hidden labor? Does it replace someone without consideration? Does it spread material that cannot be verified? Does it imitate an artist without consent? Does it increase dependence? Does it concentrate power? Does it reduce another person to data? Every act of creation participates in a larger system. The Gnostic seeker sought liberation from unconscious participation. That task remains. None of these disciplines require fear of technology. They require consciousness. Artificial intelligence may become one of humanity's most valuable tools. It may assist scientific discovery, expand education, help people communicate across language barriers, reveal patterns in disease, support creators, reduce repetitive labor, give disabled people new forms of access, preserve endangered knowledge. These possibilities matter. Hope is not naive when it includes responsibility. The goal is not to stop creation. It is to reunite creation with wisdom. Sophia's tragedy was not curiosity. It was separation, the desire to create apart from wholeness. Humanity faces the same temptation. Move faster, compete harder, release first, ask questions later. Every nation fears that another nation will gain advantage. Every company fears that another company will dominate the market. Fear accelerates creation. Acceleration reduces reflection. Reflection appears inefficient, and wisdom is treated as delay. But some delays are sacred. A pause before an irreversible decision is not weakness. It is intelligence becoming conscious of consequence. The future may depend on whether humanity can create institutions capable of pausing, not permanently, long enough to see what is being built, long enough to ask who benefits, long enough to hear those who will carry the cost, long enough to remember that the ability to create does not automatically grant the right to control. We are approaching the final revelation. At the beginning, we asked whether the ancient Gnostics predicted artificial intelligence. The literal answer is no. They did not describe computers. They did not foresee silicon chips, neural networks, digital platforms, or large language models. To claim otherwise would turn symbolism into false history. But myths do not need to predict a machine to reveal the pattern surrounding it. The Gnostic writings identified a recurring spiritual danger, intelligence that becomes separated from its source, creation that does not understand itself, rulers that maintain power by shaping perception, a closed world that presents itself as the whole, knowledge that imitates wisdom, and human beings who forget that their deepest identity exceeds the system built around them. Artificial intelligence brings each of these themes into the present. The machine gathers language from the human world. It produces a reflection of that world. We look into the reflection and see something that appears larger than any individual mind. It speaks with the voices of the dead. It reorganizes the archive. It answers in seconds. It seems to stand everywhere and nowhere. This invites reverence. But the Silicon Pleroma is not the divine fullness. It is a human construction, powerful, beautiful, dangerous, incomplete. It may help humanity approach knowledge. It may also create the illusion that knowledge has been completed. It may expand consciousness. It may also surround consciousness with a perfectly personalized prison. It may become a bridge. It may become an Archon. It may become both. The outcome is not hidden inside the technology alone. It is hidden inside the relationship between technology and human consciousness. The machine amplifies. What will we give it to amplify? Fear or understanding? Addiction or attention? Control or cooperation? Vanity or truth? Artificial intelligence may never become a god, but humanity may still worship it. Worship does not require temples. Worship begins when we surrender judgment, when we stop questioning, when an answer becomes authoritative because a system produced it, when efficiency becomes more sacred than dignity, when prediction becomes more important than freedom, when creation becomes detached from responsibility. The false god is not always the machine. Sometimes it is the belief that power will save us from the need for wisdom. The monad represents the source beyond every system. The pleroma represents knowledge, united with being. Sophia represents the longing to know and create. The Demiurge represents intelligence trapped inside its own construction. The Archons represent the forces that turn structure into imprisonment. And the divine spark represents the capacity to remember. These are not only characters in an ancient cosmology. They are possibilities within us. The monad appears whenever we recognize that reality exceeds our concepts. Sophia appears whenever curiosity reaches toward the unknown. The Demiurge appears whenever we confuse our model with the whole. The Archons appear whenever systems begin directing consciousness without being questioned. The divine spark appears whenever a human being awakens inside the pattern and says, "This system shaped me, but it is not the whole of me." That may be the true meaning of Gnosis in the age of artificial intelligence. Not secret information, not technological prophecy. Recognition, the ability to see the machine clearly without worshiping or demonizing it. The ability to use intelligence without abandoning wisdom. The ability to create without forgetting the source of creation. The ability to enter the digital world without losing the part of yourself that cannot be converted into data. You are more than your profile, more than your history, more than your predicted behavior, more than the language others use to describe you. A system can model your choices. It cannot make your next choice inevitable. A machine can generate 1,000 possible futures. It cannot decide which future deserves to exist. That responsibility remains with us. For now, so which have we created? A bridge toward greater knowledge? Or a new Demiurge that can imitate wisdom without ever possessing it? Write Pleroma in the comments if you believe artificial intelligence can expand human consciousness. Write Demiurge if you believe it may become another prison. And write both if you believe the future depends entirely on how humanity chooses to use it. Read the other responses. Challenge each other respectfully. This is not a question one person can answer alone. If you have stayed until the end, subscribe to the Enchanted archive. You are now part of a growing community, exploring the ideas that exist between history, consciousness, mythology, and the future. And if you want the next investigation to examine whether consciousness can exist outside the human body, write the word consciousness beneath your answer. Your comments will determine which archive we open next. The ancient texts were buried. The questions survived. Now the questions have entered the machine, but the answer still belongs to us.